Tonya Todd is an author, actress, and Sin City cinephile whose sundry background ranges from content writer to software programmer to her words, not mine, booth babe. With a cast of characters as diverse as her career, her fiction explores the infinite hues of what drives us all, relationships and desire. Aside from her writing, Tonya coordinates Henderson Writers Group's Dime Grinds program, which exposes local authors to the public via coffee house readings. And it's hosted right here. It's awesome. She's also been a contributor to NPR's Desert Companion, and her short story, Mourning Sacrifice, is featured in Tales from the Silver State 4. So with that, let's all welcome Tonya Todd.
Mourning Sacrifice. A bleached moon glowed behind black velvet clouds. The violet sky twinkled with possibility as I drove to Celine's apartment, same as I had for the last 6 months. Darkness fell early now, lengthening my time with her. The air smelled fresh, though likely I imagined it in my anticipation of her company. I drove past the spot where her husband died. There were faster routes, but each night I ventured by to remember. His disappearance caused this dream wrapped in nightmare. Without it, she'd not trouble with me. She'd have no need. Finding his body, determining his fate, those were her only purpose. The Henderson police had failed her, and that's where I came in. Each night assisting her search. Each night her mournful eyes. Each night my torment renewed. She'd sent a text about a new lead, a safe house. Whatever it was, she'd not find him, but I would accompany her just the same. She had no one else, after all. Her door swung open as soon as I knocked. She greeted me with a smile the way she had of late. The sadness remained, but less severe each evening. Sterling spirals hanging from her lobes matched those of her ebony curls. I allowed my gaze to linger, as I too often did. Blood rushed to her cheeks, subtle beneath her dark skin, but impossible for me to miss. Typically, her face held me captive, but tonight, my eyes fell to her apple-red dress, latex by the scent. A costume, Kara? I forced my focus higher. In case we get caught. How will this help? She smirked. The non-enlightened will assume I'm a hooker. A senseless assumption. Let us hope it does not come to that. I offered my elbow to her. Ready? Almost. Come inside while I finish. Inside? Of course. I don't know why you still wait out there after all this time. She backed up to allow my entrance. With caution, I crossed the barrier into her home. The room struck me with a rich Celine bouquet. I shut my eyes to calm my senses. She was everywhere. Will you zip me? She turned and braced herself against the wall, her snug dress open to the small of her bare back. Was this a test? My fingers trembled as I reached for the tab. This gets tighter? I inhaled, bathing in her fragrance, cinching the zipper's teeth slower than I should. Why did she tempt me so? Finito. I sucked in one last whiff. She padded across beige carpet to a nearby closet. When she emerged, tall, spiked-heeled boots gloved her luscious legs. Can you walk in those? I asked, ashamed to enjoy the visual. Better than you'd think. I think you can do anything. Again, she smiled my way, infecting me with undeserved joy. I should never have stepped inside. I looked elsewhere while she applied her lipstick, a practice she'd resumed 6 weeks ago. Rows of photographs decorated her walls. One in particular caught my eye. Celine, infant in hand, husband by her side. I admired the blended palette of the trio. A mating of one so fair with one dark as Celine would have been shunned during my last visit to the Americas. Much like my kind, where some are born and others made, intermixing was discouraged. The tiny child appeared helpless in her arms, a half-breed much like myself. Only 6 days, you said? She sighed, her gloom returning. Maybe they're together now. Why had I brought it up? I touched her shoulder to comfort. She shivered. Shall we? I hoped to escape the grim mood. Nodding, she addressed her husband's picture. Don't worry, baby. I'll find out what happened to you. Tonight. I know it. She kissed the glass, leaving a crimson print, and then stroked the frame. Her farewell revealed the absence of jewelry on her left hand. Where is your... She twirled to face me, and I swallowed the vision, every captured curve committed to memory. How do I look? Quelling my first response, inspired, I settled for a coat, I think. She fetched a long trench from her closet and returned to take my arm. Celine's neighbor gasped when we stepped out. She hobbled by, hissing as we passed. Her tendency to clutch her cross and chant when I came round didn't faze Celine, who spoke not a lick of Italian. The warnings fell on her lovely American ears, creating no disharmony. My accidental glance left the woman slack-jawed and frozen. I tipped my fedora, a habit I hadn't outgrown from an older time, not my own, but old nonetheless, and smiled at her. She scurried into her home and slammed the door. Well, that was rude, Celine said once in the car. Perhaps she worries about... I turned away. A man in the house. It's really none of her business. She means well, Cara. Celine dropped the topic to direct me toward the first stop, a bar in downtown Las Vegas. She peered my way when we stopped at a light. Why were you named D'Artagnan? My name called me back to the night she'd first asked for it. After another fruitless search, I'd feared she'd meant to check my credentials, a task she neglected in the burden of her grief. Fool that I am, I'd answered in truth. Like the Musketeer? She'd asked. Something like that. Call me Dan. No, she'd insisted. It's not your name. She was divinity itself. Honking cars propelled me to the present. The light was green. Why do you ask? Isn't it a last name? His first name was Charles. Did your research, Cara? When she didn't respond, I explained. My mother was a fan, his mistress, in fact. Are you French or Italian? Who's the detective here? You're full of inquiries tonight. She flipped her hair aside, tossing her scent my way. You know all about me, but I never asked your story. You've been so dedicated, so helpful. She touched my wrist. I need to thank you somehow. This job. The heat from her fingers branded my arm. Reward enough. There must be something I can do for you. Her lashes blinked with a heavy clap. Her heartbeat filled the front seat. I loosened my collar, then lowered the windows to let in the city. The buzz of neon, whirring tires, anything but the enticement within reach. Her mahogany skin paled, and I realized in horror that in my distraction I'd driven past the Smith Center, where I'd discovered her. In my obsession of the latest Sibella, I'd followed the production of A Gentleman's Guide to Las Vegas. On the final evening performance, she entered my sight, Celine. Silver sparkles from her gown rippling over her curves as she descended the grand staircase. She reminded of my first love before the change, though she bore no resemblance to Eliana. Different in every way save for the grace in her step and the sway of her rounded hips. Never in my boundless years had I been struck with such devastation as to spot Celine, love her in an instant, and watch her ardent gaze adore another. Spite overtook me. I followed them home where the cries of coital bliss pierced their closed window. Consumed with lust and envy, I trailed him to a nearby corner mart when he left to fetch more wine. Every ounce of my blood seethed. I robbed her of her husband that night, drained him of every precious drop. Centuries of coveting the living, suffering my admiration from a distance, longing for the mortal life I'd never reclaim, all culminated in one fatal moment. I simply snapped. And now I serve my penance, aiding her search, watching her grieve, witness to her sorrow, but never allowing my advance. My moment of weakness destroyed the life she'd made. To compensate, I'd ease her woes and protect her from the monsters in the world. My apologies, Cara. I meant to avoid this. It's fine. She sank into the seat. Do you think I'll ever find him? She wouldn't, though I knew not what to say. Ending the chase might bring closure. Yet, if her quest gave her purpose, I'd not steal that from her, too. Tell me I'm not kidding myself. I parked the car, then turned to search her forlorn eyes. I could take her grief from her, relieve her of those memories, but that seemed a worse theft than that of her husband. What I think matters not. Her eyes darted down when I helped her from the passenger side. It does to me. Her fingers slipped through mine. The cops think he left me. We were finally healing, finally happy again, even trying. She clutched her abdomen. No tears tonight. I thumbed her cheek, though none had fallen. They'll not help your search. She lurched forward and embraced me, another breach in my resolved constraints, yet my witless arms obeyed. Holding her close, I basked in her warmth. All of me hungered for her. You always make me better. Her heart rate slowed and she smiled up at me. Seized by her beauty, my full mouth spoke. He would never leave you, Celine. No man could. How do you know? The way he looked at you. I released her and turned my head. In the photographs. She accepted my lie and we accessed the bar. The dead room housed only a few scattered couples and a small group of university lads, footballers by their jerseys and perhaps a ball boy. Over the course of our investigation, I'd noted Celine's theatrical flair when occasion called for it. This night, as she crossed the room, her working girl swagger drew every eye. The resulting face slap from a jealous wife did not stop the ogling of one onlooker. He rubbed his cheek and employed a more furtive glance. Though I wished to crush his skull, I could not blame the man. Celine had entered without her coat, showcasing her perfection. I, too, struggled to veer away. I held sentry at the door while she questioned the barista. From that distance, I heard their exchange. He said little of value at first, but did claim to have directions to the safe house. When a customer interrupted, my discipline failed and I glimpsed Celine's way. She turned round and leaned back against the bar with her legs outstretched. Had I a beating heart, she'd still it. I followed the length of her lithe form, from her vinyl boots up her shiny dress and settled at her plump cherry lips. The night would be long indeed. A pack of boys passed by to exit, breaking my line of vision. I caught a whiff of their youth and decided a top-off might be in order to control myself with Celine. Flashing the shield that purports as my badge, I plucked away the weak one. Detective Katja, a word if you please. Am I in trouble? His cherub cheeks rouged. I zeroed in on his eyes. Fear not, young one. Tell your friends you'll catch up, then meet me round back. This age of voyeurs made reporters of anyone with a smartphone. With discretion in mind, I surveyed the lot. Nothing stirred. The boy joined me as instructed. I swept the area again, then extended my canines. Even paralyzed under my thrall, his muscles tensed when I pricked his soft flesh. So young, so supple. His smooth, tangy delight seeped into me, and in that sweet moment I forgot her. Feeding was the only time I could. Once temporarily sated, I healed his wound and suggested we hadn't met. He stumbled away as a familiar scent pulled me toward the bar's entrance. Celine. I checked for any spills and rushed to meet her. Where to now? She slipped me the address on a torn sheet of paper. Where'd you go? To handle a leering boy. I dabbed my mouth again. It's sweet of you to protect me, but I don't care what they think. I just need answers. Her hand stroked my arm. Otherwise, I'll never be able to. She edged forward, eyes wide, but my renewed strength allowed me to back away. What does it matter? She snapped. If he's dead, there's no one left to miss me. Kara, please. Be honest. She stepped closer. If I quit searching, would you even bother with me? Would I see you again? I stared into her dark eyes, black as my tainted soul. Every night until you tired of my company. Her hot breath scathed my chin. What are you saying? Again, I retreated. Only that I'll not desert you. That's all? I turned my back to her and headed for the car. Her information brought us to a government home in a neighborhood typically buzzing with sin. The stillness of the street implied an unseen threat. I asked Celine to stay behind while I assessed the danger. Even a ruse could provide real peril. Beer bottles and cigarette droppings ornamented the front stoop. I cased the perimeter, then listened inside. The only sound detected? Light clacking approaching from behind. Celine, who never could obey. One more aspect to treasure. Recently abandoned, I said when she reached me. Let's try inside. She revealed a tiny metal pick from a leather sleeve and crouched before the door. I watched in awe while she worked the tool. The device scraped inside the lock until a distinct click gave way and the knob turned. Where did you learn that? I lived a very different life before. She waved me inside, and I froze. Ladies first, I offered at a loss. Oh, she said. I thought you'd want to check it. She stared up at me with the expectant eyes of one in the presence of a hero. As the villain who'd ruined her life, I forged my valor and attempted to cross the door's threshold. No force prevented my entry. The stink of booze, smoke, and violence saturated the air. One superseding aroma beckoned me deeper within the dwelling. Fangs itching, I tracked the scent to the furthermost bedroom. A man, beaten and bruised, hunched limply on a chair. Duct tape and rope prevented his collapse. His faint heart whispered its defeat, yet his blood had not summoned me. Beneath a second chair, a dark pool congealed. A trail streaked the floor, thinning as it approached the attached bathroom. My senses informed me that no one remained, yet I checked inside to be certain. Empty, save for a red-stained blade. What happened here? I asked. The man shifted as though he'd just noticed my presence. His sallow eyes begged the removal of his gag. I loosened the cloth as Celine entered the room. Her eyes popped. She covered her mouth as if stifling a scream that wouldn't erupt. The man tried to speak, but Celine's trembling distracted me from his words. I ushered her toward the door. Look away, Kara. This is not for you. No, she shoved by me. I need to see. I have to know. Was it? The man's raspy plea killed the terrible silence. Help, he whispered. They butchered him. Who? Celine demanded. Where is he? She dashed to the chair and tugged at ropes that did not budge. Don't know his name, he grunted. Need a doctor. We'll get one. She pulled uselessly at his bindings. Is he alive? Where is he? Dead. Saw where they're headed. Tell us! She jerked the ropes in a frenzy. Let me, Celine. I examined the Gordian knot and determined Alexander's method best. Fetch the knife. I pointed to the bathroom. Use a towel to avoid prints. Isn't it evidence? Shouldn't you call this in? Not if you want to get here first. Now hurry. In her absence, I commanded the man's cooperation. When she returned, I cut him loose. Mountains, he spoke between wheezing. Up west. Can you draw it? I asked. Celine scrambled for pen and paper. From the comfort of the floor, the man sketched a rough map of where they absconded with the body whose essence had guided my discovery. One phony call to my fictitious precinct, and we rushed to the car. Though I knew the voyage to be a farce, Celine's adrenaline galvanized. Ignoring all traffic laws, we raced to Mount Charleston to recover the corpse. The moon lit our way toward a deserted lee off the mountainside. At that elevation, the October winds chilled enough that Celine cinched her coat. Determined to find the body that was not her husband, she limped along the rocky path, jagged terrain quarreling with the tender feet within her merciless boots. When her struggle became too much for me, I scooped her up to cradle her in my arms. She did not argue as expected, but instead settled against me, possibly hoping for warmth she'd not receive. All my worldly desires snuggled against my shoulder, trusting me with her life, yet I carried her toward a risk my actions created. These men are dangerous, I said. We'll go if they're still here. No, she whispered. Tonight's the night. I can feel it. I won't gamble with your life. I have faith. How she could hope after all she'd lost, I could not comprehend. But by the grace of her credence, no living men remained near the site. Only ash and footprints marked the presence of the disposal crew. They'd concealed the grave well from human eyes, beneath rock and bush. I spotted it straight away, yet allowed her search to validate the sham, then pretended to stumble upon it. Substituting a flat rock for a spade, I uncovered the corpse. The anguish in her face when she realized we'd reached another dead end maimed me to my core. It's not him. Her eyes glistened. I'm never going to find him. Never know what happened. She raced down the mountainside until a patch of soft dirt gripped her heels. As a reflex, I pursued and caught her with ease. Squelching my hunter's urge, I reached out to soothe Celine, who flew into my arms where she bawled with abandon. My heart broke for the pain I'd caused my beloved. She deserved the truth. Her shuddering stopped. It's over. She looked up at me, her ardent gaze disarming my confession. I'm done. Paralyzed with desire, I stood, helpless, while she tested her lips on mine. Her coat dropped. My resolve crumbled. I reached for her zipper while she tugged at my shirt and trousers. Her dress peeled away and I pounced, kissing her, licking her, sucking at her breast. My fangs emerged. I froze. We can't. I turned from her. Your husband. Don't you see? He's dead. Again, I swallowed my urges. He's not coming back. There's no betrayal. There is. I willed my fangs away. I'm not truly a detective. Then she covered her bare breasts. What are you? My stomach seized. A monster who wished to help. Well, you did. She sauntered closer, exposing herself to me. You helped me track every lead, helped me accept the truth. Her warm fingers reached into my hair. Now help me heal. One brush of her tongue on my neck and I faltered. Please. My arms wrapped around her. Stop. I need you, she begged. Don't reject me. This isn't what you think. With effort, I restrained myself. I'm not human. She cowered away, snatching my shirt from the ground to cover herself. Look, if you're not into this, just take me home. Celine. She glared back. Bien qui, Kara, come here. She tiptoed forward. I won't harm you. My lips curled to show her. She fingered my canines, then flinched. How? Touch my skin. You had to notice. She smoothed her hand over my cheek, down my neck, across my chest. Impossible. Her brow arched. This is why. Only at night. See. She raised her brave chin and peered into my soul. It changes nothing. It changes everything. No. She cast off the shirt, sanctioning the brisk night to stiffen her already pert nipples. I want you. She swept her curls off her shoulder. If you want me, I'm yours. Her pulse ignited. Take me! I lunged for her and spoke against her throat. You don't know what you say. I do. No, Kara. Without you this year, I'd have ended my life. You believed in me, kept me sane. The heat from her bosom warmed my lifeless chest. Help me move on. She returned to my lips, kissing me, scraping her tongue along the daggers in my mouth, pressing just enough to kindle the flame. The trickle fevered my thirst, drove me beyond rational thought. Her throbbing jugular, her svelte body, their pleas for penetration. I obliged them both. I hurled her to the coat, thrust deep within her and pierced her willing flesh. Her initial cry rippled through me as the sweet copper flood gushed over my tongue. The orgy of thrills overwhelmed my senses, her screams of pain and pleasure a symphony for my bliss. I lost myself in her, drowning in ecstasy, dreaming to make her mine, truly mine, for eternity. But she was not mine. I can't. With all my strength, I stopped. My body tremored from the inertia. Can't do this to you. I want you to, my temptress purred. I closed my eyes to resist. It was me. Fighting sobs, I opened them to prove my sincerity. I killed him. You didn't, she shook her head. You couldn't. I did. She scrambled back and covered herself, crouching, crying, bleeding. No. Mi dispiace, I knelt before her. I'm so sorry. Her furious eyes narrowed. How could you tell me? Why did I have to know? My love forced my confession. I don't deserve you. She snatched a rock, heaved it at me, and missed. You monster. See. You. She grabbed a fallen branch and broke it in half. Wielding it as a stake, she came at me on her knees, lunging for my heart. I accepted her attack, ineffective as it was. Merely a scratch. Stand up, she screamed, doing the same. I obeyed. She stabbed again, throwing her weight into it. The point cut deeper, yet not enough. She shrieked and flung the stick at me. The bright moon highlighted a clearing. She hastened there and dislodged a stick from the ground, a narrow wooden tent spike, perfect for the task. She charged at me, and I braced for her vengeance. The rod drove through, gouging me, yet failing once again. She'd not pushed deep enough, nor was her aim correct. "I hate you!" She struck me with her palm. Her words wounded more than my stinging cheek, more than the hole in my chest. "Just die!" She stumbled back, shivering, bawling, coated with dirt and blood, still beautiful, still tempting. "I love you." I approached and guided her shaking hands back. "What are you doing?" "Helping you." The goddess required a sacrifice. Justice demanded it. With my hands over hers, I adjusted the weapon's angle and shoved it deeper, grunting from the impact. Blood gurgled up my throat and oozed from my chest. One more thrust was needed. It would have to be hers. "Finish it, Kara." "Oh, God!" She gaped in horror. "What have I done?" She yanked out the spike, then tried to stop the flow. I swatted her hands and collapsed to my knees. "Don't." "But you'll die." She swiped my shirt and pressed it to my wound. I deserved to. Her desperate eyes met mine. I don't care." "Cosa stai dicendo? Celine, what are you saying?" "I don't care," she whispered through silent tears. "I can't lose you too."